going to discuss how to sell your unique experience as an AmeriCorps member on a resume and in an interview. But you're probably wondering who we are. So my name is Autumn Kearney, and I'm currently serving in the Advise Michigan program, and I'm also the LeaderCorps representative for this program. And at this point, it's my pleasure to introduce you to my program director, Melissa Stewart.
Thank you, Autumn. I'm happy to share some tips with you all today. I had originally pulled some of this information together to share with AmeriCorps programs that I was running a number of years back, and in doing so, I drew on my own unique experiences serving as an AmeriCorps Vista member for 2 years, as well as my program manager and program director experiences in supporting members. There are many opinions out there on how you might do these things, and you have to do what works best for you, but our hope is to give you some helpful tips to get you started.
Yep. Thank you so much, Mel, for speaking with us on this topic. And just a little bit more background of why we decided to bring this topic to you. As LeaderCorps members, we discussed some of the things that our members mentioned as areas where they would like extra support, and resume and interview prep was one of those areas. So we're hoping that you can watch this webinar at your leisure, whenever it's comfortable for you, and whenever you're ready to start going through this process. So today, we are going to spend some time talking about how to get started with resume creation and then move into adding in your service experience. Later, we will review what to include in each section of a resume and how to translate all of this into an interview. We will finish with some questions that were submitted by current AmeriCorps members about this process, and Mel will answer them for us.
Great. So to begin, you will want to put some good time into preparing your resume. You can start by identifying skills that have been learned and utilized. Create skill clusters that are relevant to the position that you're applying for. Think of categories such as interpersonal skills like listening, counseling, collaborating, educational skills like teaching, advising, coaching, facilitating, communication skills such as interviewing, writing, editing, public speaking, creative skills such as designing, drafting, innovating, analytical skills such as reasoning, assessing, evaluating, problem-solving skills such as researching, organizing, clarifying, or maybe reviewing, leadership skills like initiating, managing, planning, motivating others, recruiting, leading, management skills such as delegating, hiring, supervising, scheduling, and then technical skills like programming, computing, record keeping, things like that. And then as you are identifying those skills and experiences and really brainstorming, make a list. So you've done a lot this year or in this term of service. Write it all down and start to fit it into some of the previously discussed skill clusters. Think about including experiences with trainings, workshops, conferences, awards, articles, projects you may have been involved in, data that you've collected and analyzed. Think about your experiences with those, and maybe have you presented throughout your term of service? What was your involvement like? Did you receive something that you're really proud of? Your experiences should be written up just like any other professional experience would be. There is a worksheet that will be available online that's been adapted from an AmeriCorps Vista worksheet titled Unpacking Your Vista Experiences that maybe some of you have seen out there. It really can serve to help you unpack your AmeriCorps service no matter which program you fall under. Taking the time to answer questions such as those on the sheet can really help you professionally showcase your experiences. Example reflection questions could include, how did your AmeriCorps experience enhance your knowledge, skills, and understanding of your intended career field? Share an example of a time you solved a problem. What skills did you utilize? Discuss a time that you helped someone that comes from a different background than you. Tell about a time you worked to resolve a conflict. Were you able to build community partnerships? How did you utilize those partnerships in your service? There is an entire list of those questions that are just really helpful as you reflect back on your experiences during your term of service and beyond. So employers often look for a general set of aptitudes and personality traits as well. So this is not an exhaustive list, but think about things like adaptability, teamwork, your ability to sell ideas, a strong work ethic, autonomy, working, on your own as well, initiative, taking that initiative, your reliability, ability to manage time and priorities, and working in a diverse environment. I'll go through the basic sections of a resume as people often ask about this. Just know that there are multiple ways to package it all, and you need to do what makes the most sense for you at the end of the day. So your contact section includes things like your name, your email address, your street address, your phone number, making sure that it's easy to read and appealing to the eye. You want it to stand out, so maybe you do things like bolding your name, making it a little bit bigger. Education. So the education section would include the schools that you've attended and their location, your graduation date, the degrees you've earned, and perhaps academic honors, even certificates. Things that it doesn't necessarily include would maybe be computer applications or software. I think everybody utilizes Microsoft Office Suite these days. And so maybe you could take the opportunity to work specific computer savviness into bullet points on your resume, and maybe being just a little bit more specific about what types of systems you've worked with. Sometimes it doesn't include your GPA. If your GPA is good and it pertains directly to the position, or you're graduating soon, or you're just a recent grad, you might use it. But when you've been out of school for at least a year, your GPA tends to be old news. You can definitely also move your education section down at that point as well. So my education section is down near the bottom of my resume. Not that it's not valued, it's very, it's important, but, they want to know a lot more about your individual experiences. So your experience section, it emphasizes your past and present professional experiences. You could title it work experience, professional experience, work history, field work, relevant experience, etc. There are any number of titles that you could give that section. The usual content for this section includes organization and location, position title, dates of employment or involvement, description of responsibilities and duties, things like that. And then what I've called here an honors, activities, service, etc. section might highlight relevant activities that you've been involved with and honors you've received that you could discuss with the organization. How will they make you, an asset to the organization? This includes things like academic awards, membership in organizations, leadership positions you've held, community service positions, work-related honors. Why would you write this section? That's a great question. I would write this section to customize your resume for specific positions, to provide evidence of qualifications, to demonstrate that your work has been recognized as high quality, to provide evidence that you're well-rounded, to make you stand out and show how unique you are, and to reflect your values and your commitment. It doesn't have to be called any of these things, certainly. It could be called additional experiences or something like that. It definitely needs to make sense for you, but there often is kind of another section that maybe catches some other things that you don't feel necessarily fit into the others. It's crucial that your resume gets right to work selling your credentials. So we'll talk a little bit about a few things that you can think about to bring it together. Take a look at the position description and tailor your resume points to it. Really think about how you've done the things that they describe in the description, and then tailor your resume to include some of that language. It seems like an easy tip, but it's definitely something that gives you a leg up, and especially in places where perhaps they even use a system to separate resumes out, it is helpful to have that language so that some of those systems can grab onto your resume. Be specific. Instead of saying something broad like good communication skills, you might want to say, excellent writing and editing skills, if that's really what you're talking about. Have other people look at your resume. General editing and proofreading goes a long way. We often spend so much time with our own resume that we might miss something, and so having a fresh set of eyes on it is really helpful. Make sure that you aren't repeating information. Do you perform same or similar job tasks for more than one job? I would then focus on accomplishments in each section. Finally, figure out how you wish to present the information. You also have to feel comfortable with what you are presenting to them about yourself. I think you need to work with your resume a little bit to see what looks best to you and what works best for you. Also, don't forget about finishing touches either. Is it in the format that the organization asked for? Only give them what they ask for. The file name should be your name and the position that you're applying for. Make sure that the file name isn't a jumble of letters and numbers and a bunch of things that maybe your computer automatically saves it as. Make it professional. And then finally, PDF your resume and cover letter too, for that matter. So then when an organization opens it, there won't be underlined words or formatting won't be off, and they'll actually get what you were so proud of to send to them. Going beyond the paper, there were lots of questions about the interview process. So your resume got you in the door, and now it's time to expand beyond that. First, find ways to refer to your experiences and skills. So use real examples in any vehicle, whether it's your resume or the interview, relating to your experiences and skills. Before an interview, or as I'm preparing my resume, it's helpful to think about a handful of key examples that I know I want to talk about or refer to. Don't downplay your experiences either. Do not use the word just. That is not a thing. Don't say, I'm just an AmeriCorps member, or I just did XYZ twice though. Your experiences absolutely matter. Also, I am a huge proponent of including your AmeriCorps experience under professional experiences with all other positions that you include. This year or term of service will stretch you and you will learn many new things. Allow your resume to professionally showcase your volunteer and service accomplishments and abilities. Don't be afraid to use AmeriCorps language when discussing your service position. Sometimes it's the very best way to help them understand or to remind them what AmeriCorps is. Explaining that during my term of service, I was able to XYZ is helpful. I've had instances where someone has never heard of AmeriCorps, so I explain it concisely and they get really excited about my experiences and about learning about the program. Skip the acronyms. Do not use acronyms unless you already spelled out what you're talking about. It's really hard to understand when people string acronyms together. Just as when you do reporting for AmeriCorps, you cannot use acronyms freely because your program manager or director might know what you're talking about, but the person that they report to maybe doesn't know what you're doing day to day or the complexities of your host site lingo. So make it clear. Feel free to bring notes that will help you answer common interview questions. It's perfectly okay to bring a Padfolio or a folder with notes in it. It's also helpful to have your cover letter and resume with some words highlighted that you'd like to touch on in case you get nervous. It's definitely fine to have questions written down that you wish to ask the interviewers. In fact, I strongly encourage it. Which brings me to the next point. Ask questions. Clarify concepts, news articles, or acronyms that you encountered during your research. Clarify any unknowns that may have come up during the actual interview. Ask personal questions of interviewers such as, what do you like about the organization? What advice do you have for a new professional in this field? Why have you remained with the organization for X years if they give you that information? Inquire more about the interview and selection process. That's always a good one that you can fall back on. But don't go without questions. Definitely make sure that they know that you did your research and you do have questions because you're actually interested in the position. And then finally, follow up. believe it or not, many people do not follow up. You can stand out by sending a nice thank you note or an email to the interviewers. It can be short and simple, and it can confirm that you feel you're a great fit after speaking with them.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and move into the Q&A section. One of the really cool things about this section is that all of these questions came in from current AmeriCorps members, and so we want to make sure that we get some time to answer all of them. So, Mel, could you tell us a little bit about when in your term of service should you start applying for jobs and graduate programs?
Absolutely. So first, jobs. There is no real formula for this, and it depends on a variety of things. What field you're interested in, how big the organization is, the length of your term of service, and so on. If you are doing a 12-month position, I would begin looking at what is out there around 9 months. 6 months is too early, but waiting until you complete your term of service may be too late. For example, when I was a member, I started to get anxious and apply 6 months out. I put way too much time and energy into applying, and I got exhausted and overwhelmed, and the timing didn't line up after all. That being said, sometimes hiring processes take a while. So beginning to apply around 3 months out or so is fine, but make sure you are reflecting in your resume when your term of service is actually up. Perhaps instead of saying July 2018 to present, put the actual date you will complete the position so people understand that it's a term of service. Also, be upfront and honest about the term of service. You want to see the entire term of service through. That's important. You made a commitment, and completing that commitment is important and a wonderful thing to show to future employers, future potential employers. Ditching a program before your term is up isn't going to show that you can see something through. And then for graduate programs, look up programs that you're interested in applying for and their timelines. Each graduate program may have their own timeline and deadlines. So it is helpful to work back from those deadlines to come up with a timeline that you would need to follow in order to get everything in on time. In addition, each AmeriCorps term of service could be different from the next, and not all programs operate on the academic year. Therefore, it all really depends on individual graduate programs and their deadlines and timelines.
Thank you. How would you suggest members can explain belonging to or serving multiple organizations?
Absolutely. This can be tricky since you wear multiple hats and serve with a program under an organization. In many cases, you may want to list the main organization and then include your position as an AmeriCorps member. Those placed at another site under the main organization may want to include, for instance, ABC High School AmeriCorps member as their title, with the main organization at the forefront. Or maybe you include ABC High School and list AmeriCorps member as your title. It really depends on what position you are targeting on how you market it. It is also helpful to speak about this during interviews as a point of clarity. Often a question that comes up in interviews is how you manage multiple responsibilities or how you manage getting demands from multiple parties. You can speak about the various hats that you've worn in your service year and serving multiple entities. This is pretty typical in the nonprofit sector, so people often understand.
Definitely. One question that came up quite a few times is suggestions where people can add data or metrics into their resume.
Yeah, so if you managed a budget, you could talk about that. The program data you may collect is also a good thing to highlight. Each program collects data unique to their program, so I can't speak to the exacts for each one of you. However, I would find ways to work it into your resume points. So one universal example is cultivating volunteers and the number of hours that they serve. Or perhaps talk about working in a team of X number of people, supporting X number of students, and so on. Put some numbers or data in and see if it makes sense and is relevant. And I think that's how you can start to craft what will become that part of your resume.
Yeah, another thing we've mentioned a couple times is just how much we're all doing. So do you have any suggestions for ways that we can fit all of our experiences into a resume?
Yeah, so my advice would actually be just to not confuse telling your story with creating your autobiography. So you don't need to include every detail, even though we're saying you should include details and things you've done, and those experiences do matter. But I think including only the information to help you land an interview, and also sometimes I think we hold on to things because we're so excited about those experiences, but you don't need to, every experiences you've ever had listed. So having someone look it over and help you edit it would be another, suggestion of mine, and another way to utilize your peers or other folks that can help you with this process, which we'll talk about soon. But your resume really needs to pass the skim test. Could the organization see your main credentials within the first 10 to 15 seconds? Does critical information jump off the page? Do you effectively sell yourself on the top quarter of the first page? Not every detail. Again, just the detail to help you land an interview. Don't hold on to those things. That is just definitely what I would say. Also, one question that kind of fits into that was talking about the pages of the resume. So I would say try to keep your resume to one page at this point. If you have to use a 9-point font to keep it on one page, you may need to make it more concise. Don't spread your resume out also just to make it look like 2 pages. If there's a lot of white space and it maybe doesn't make sense, then I think chances are you could get it onto one page. It really takes work and time to tailor your resume and to figure out what to include and what to leave out. But I just think that it's important to put that time in and to make it the full package deal there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that editing piece is really important as well, because I think sometimes if I don't have anyone look at it, I might not think I'm being repetitive, but when someone else reads it, it's usually pretty easy for them to tell if you've repeated something a few times.
Definitely.
But kind of conversely, what if I feel like I'm missing some experiences?
Yeah, so if you feel the need to fill any gaps, I would encourage you to chat with your site supervisor, a mentor, a friend, a program director, to see if they can help you brainstorm something that maybe you actually did do in that category, but you're not recalling. Or maybe they can include you in on an appropriate project to help you gain experience in that category before your term of service is over, so that you do have that experience. The thing is, just don't be afraid to ask. It also may help you show an example of initiative in an interview, that you took the initiative to gain experience in an area that you were maybe unfamiliar with, and it will make you more marketable to gain new experiences.
For sure. Another thing that came up a lot is people wanting to connect with AmeriCorps members that came before them that are walking a path that maybe they want to walk along. So how can we connect to AmeriCorps alum about their experiences?
Absolutely. So if you haven't heard of AmeriCorps alums, you should definitely check them out. AmeriCorps alums, if you are unfamiliar, is a community of engaged citizens and civic leaders that all work together towards the betterment of things in America. So it's the only national network that connects the nearly 1 million alumni for all AmeriCorps programs who've served since 1994. To the people, ideas, and resources that support their commitment to a lifetime of service. So, in essence, people just like you. So they provide member benefits, professional development resources. They post a lot of jobs out there that alums might be interested in. There are a few regional groups within Michigan, one of which operates officially under AmeriCorps alums, and that's the West Michigan AmeriCorps Collaborative. And then there are some other regional groups that kind of serve in a networking and support role. And you could even start one. Maybe you're the next person that starts a chapter of AmeriCorps alums in Michigan. I would also encourage you to reach out to former members in your specific program if you're curious about that, your program director or manager, and also just reaching out through those alumni networks that I mentioned are just, I think, first steps in how you can gain access and connections to tons of AmeriCorps alums around you.
Mm-hmm. I think with that too, the whole graduate school search process and job application process can be really stressful. So who are some of those key people you think that members can reach out to for support while they're going through the process?
Yeah, so I would encourage you all to reach out to your program director, your site supervisor, program manager, your fellow AmeriCorps members who are also going through similar things, and then other people in the field that you're interested in. So maybe, sit and brainstorm with somebody, like who are some people that are maybe in this field, site supervisor or program director that you think I should connect to, and maybe I should do an informational interview or something with them, and or shadow them. But I think that could be really helpful and give you some exposure to sort of figuring out what else you maybe need to do. And then again, AmeriCorps Alums is a key partner in launching Employers of National Service a few years ago. So that's a relatively new initiative that they had to recruit, hire, and advance alumni of AmeriCorps and Peace Corps. And so you can browse things like their jobs board and their career center that they have now. If you need help editing your resume, you can view their resume guide tool for tips and advice. They also have a career newsletter with an Ask the Career Coach column. You should all definitely take advantage of these resources that are available to you for free. And they also help with free tech services and things like that. So I would encourage you to check them out, but also, again, back to the people around you and talking to them, experts in the field and things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Mel, for spending some of your valuable time on this webinar with us. We do want to remind you, I'm going to go back a couple slides because our contact information is in here. And you are definitely welcome to reach out to either of us with any further questions that you may have on this topic.